Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Are you tired of managing your invoices manually? In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can manage your invoices using your WhatsApp. Let's see how it works. So this is my end-to-end workflow that is responsible for managing invoices using Stripe. So Stripe is an e-commerce platform that helps you manage products, customers, invoices, and it also takes care of payments from your customers as well. So in order to create a Stripe account, you can head to stripe.com and you can create a new account there. It's free. So when you create a new Stripe account, you can then create a Stripe store. In this case, I have a Stripe store named Test Sandbox. So Sandbox is basically a test environment where you can create test products, test customers, invoices, payments that don't really affect your real customers and products and payments. So in order to switch between sandboxes, you can click on this drop-down menu on the top left corner and then click on Switch Sandbox. You can then switch between multiple sandboxes environments, or you can create a new sandbox environment here. In my case, I have my test sandbox environment. As you can see, I can basically go to this product catalog here and I create multiple products. So for example, I have 6 products here with different prices. You can create a new product here as well. And then you can go to customers, then you can manage your customers here who have registered on your platform, your system, using email. And then you can also manage invoices by going to billing and clicking on invoices. So in here, you can create a test invoice in which you have to fill in all of this information. You have to fill in which customers you need to send the invoice to, how many line items for the invoice, and it will calculate the subtotal for the invoice, and then you fill in some other information as well. So all of these can be automated using an agent in NSN. So I'm going to show you how to do it step by step so that you can use your WhatsApp, ask your agents or ask your workflow to create, to update, to finalize, to foil an invoice for your customers without you having to log into Stripe and then creating, editing, updating all of these information manually yourself. So I'm not using any sort of spreadsheet documents because Stripe is a more professional environment and also is used widely by a lot of companies and in organizations out there for taking care of payments. So we're going to use Stripe. In order to start working on a workflow, I would like to point you to something called Stripe API, because during the workflow we are going to deal with a lot of HTTP requests. If you don't know what HTTP request is and don't know how to integrate it into NSN, please check out my previous video as well. I'll leave it in the pinned comment. So this is the documentation for Stripe API, and the section we want to have a look at is called Invoices. So first of all, we need to understand what is the invoice. So invoice is basically an object that is basically containing information about the invoice, such as the ID, the collection method, the currency, customer information, lines or products, items, and so on. And we are going to have a look at, first of all, how to create an invoice. As we can see, we have the HTTP request to this endpoint, and we have the information about the body parameters that we need to pass through this HTTP request, and we need to understand how to update an invoice, how to retrieve an invoice, how to list all the invoices as well, together with other methods such as finalize an invoice, delete a draft invoice, and how to search for multiple invoices using the search query language from Stripe. As you can see here, search invoices, and Stripe does provide something called search query language, which is basically very useful for you to search for invoices combining multiple different information. As you can see, you can search for invoices using different fields like currency, customer, receipts number, subscription, total, and so on. And these knowing these methods will be very useful for us to build the workflow. Right, so now let's go back to our workflow and I'll explain how this workflow works. So we'll start the workflow by using the when executed by another workflow node. The reason for that is because this workflow is a sub workflow within the big agents, the AI agents that can do multiple things. I've showcased that in the previous video. If you have seen that, please watch out my previous video as well. I'll leave the video in the pinned comment. Right, so in this node, I have this query. It's a test query because I pinned the test data here. This is called create an invoice for Qua, which is a customer, and with the email here for Classic Glove product. And with due date is in 10 days from now. Right, so this is a very simple query. So I have an agent. So this agent is very important because this agent is responsible for searching the information from Stripe. So it has access to multiple HTTP request tools. As you can see, it can search for customers. And in order to search for customers, as I said previously, you need to know how to use the Stripe HTTP request. And in this case, we use the search customers. So if you go back to the Stripe documentation and you search for customers, you can see the search customers method here. It's a get request pointing to this URL or endpoint. And we can search using query, page limit, and so on. And that's exactly how I built this HTTP request tool for the agent. So it's going to use this URL to search for customers, and it's going to send a body parameter using form URL encoded, and the form URL encoded will be constructed by the agent. And similarly, the agent will have access to the search products tool. And this search product is also a Stripe HTTP request tool. And again, in order to know how this works, you can go back to Stripe and search for products. And here we have the products. And you can go to search products in order to understand how many parameters or what kind of parameters we can put into this request. Similarly, we have search prices. So this search prices tool is also used to search for different prices for the product. In Stripe, you can create a product and one product can have multiple prices. So actually, let's say you create a product ABC, you don't set a fixed price for that product at the time of creating, but the action of creating a price means you create another object that is associated with the product's object, meaning throughout your store cycle or when you are doing business, you can adjust the prices of your product multiple times, and you can basically look back into the history of the prices of your product. It's very handy in that sense. And then the next tool we have access to is the search invoices. Search invoices is important because let's say you want your agent to finalize an invoice or to void an invoice or delete an invoice, then it needs to have access to this tool in order to search for the corresponding invoices. So again, in order to understand how this works, you go to Stripe documentation and search for invoices. And in here, you can go to the invoices and then click on search invoices so that you can understand how the parameters work and what method and what endpoint it is. Right, so this agent has access to these 4 HTTP request tools in order to perform the search actions to Stripe. Alright, so let's have a look into this agent to see what it does. So first of all, I'll show you the system message of this agent. It's very important that you write the prompt for this agent because first of all, it doesn't have access to the most up-to-date information about Stripe API, including parameters, which endpoint it needs to send information to, and how to construct the body parameters. So you have to be very careful with the prompt. So this is the prompt I had, and well, actually it has been revised multiple times because from time to time, the agent constructed the wrong URL encoded with the wrong parameters that was sent to Stripe, and Stripe couldn't process those things. So you have to be very careful with the information you provide to this prompt for this agent. So for example, I had to provide all the query fields for each of the HTTP request tools that I showed you previously. For the customer's query, these are the fields, and what are the values, what are the expected values, and so on. And similarly for products, and for price, and for invoice. So the agent needs to have access to all of these information so that it knows which fields it needs to use to construct the URL encoded data for the request, which is very important. Right, so this agent, after it executes information, it finds information, then it's going to output the search data. And with this search data, it includes several fields, for example, customer, products, prices, invoices. And then it's going to check, for example, if you ask the agent to create an invoice and then it finds no customer, so the first thing it's going to do is going to create a customer for you if you want to. So I have an if node here to check if the customer exists. So if it couldn't find the customer, then it's going to pass information to this node, which is called which is a WhatsApp node, which means it will send you a message on WhatsApp in order to ask you whether you want to proceed with creating a new customer. If you want to create a new customer, then you can respond with yes or proceed or something like that. Then it's going to pass your response to this agent, which is called create customer agent. This agent is responsible for creating a customer on Stripe. Therefore, it has access to this HTTP request tool of creating a customer. In this tool, it is a post request to Stripe, and this is URL. So the agent will send a post request to Stripe to create a customer, and again it will construct the form URL encoded body parameters to be sent to Stripe. Once the customer has been created, the agent will end with this node, which means the main agent will basically inform you via WhatsApp. You say, hey, the customer has been created, what do you want to do next? And then you can ask the agent to create the invoice again. But if there's an error creating customer, then it will output this node. So what if the customer exists and then the agent will proceed with creating the invoice as we queried from beginning? Then it's going to go down this path. It's going to ask you again whether you want to create the invoice. The purpose of this node is similar to the create customers node because the agent wants to involve you in the loop, which means you can confirm whether information that is going to be taken action on is correct. If the information is not correct, then the agent has one more chance in order to correct the information here. Because there's an agent here, and this agent will analyze the information that you have put in this response. And then, if you approve for the agent to go ahead with the action of creating an invoice, or updating an invoice, retrieve invoice, or finalize invoice, or voiding invoice, or delete a draft invoice, then we have multiple branches here that the agent can follow. So for creating an invoice, it's going to pass information to a new agent, which is called create invoice agent. And again, this invoice agent will have access to the create invoice HTTP request tool. And you can check on Stripe and then go to create invoice. You can see the multiple parameters that you need to put in when you are creating an invoice. So therefore, the agent will also have access to those information. So let's have a look at the system prompt for the agent. So in here, I have to tell the agent all the information it needs to put in when creating an invoice, including everything here. Otherwise, the agent will not know which parameters, which information, which values it needs to put into the request. And from time to time, it will cause the issues of bad requests, which means you are sending the wrong information to Stripe, and that is not ideal. Once the invoice has been created, we have a new agent which is called create invoice items, because when you create an invoice, the invoice is an object, and then from that object you have multiple items. So those items are indeed the services or products with the prices, so that it can sum up, or doing the calculation of the sum of the total amount in the invoice. So we have a different agent here to create the invoice items. The reason I have two different agents here is because previously I tried to put everything into one agent and the information was massive. The problem was so long and the agents couldn't process all information. So that was the reason why I first create the invoice and then attach the items to that invoice. Once the invoice has been created, it's going to pass the information to this generate invoice text agent. So this agent will basically summarize all the information it has done and then send information to your WhatsApp. So after doing that, you'll basically see the invoice that has been created. Right, so that's a bit of an explanation into how this workflow works. And let's see in action. As I have set the query previously, so I'm going to execute this workflow to create an invoice for the customer Qua with the email and for the Classic Love product. As you can see, first of all, the agent will call the search customers tool in order to find out if there is a customer associated with that email, and then it's going to search for products because we put in the name of the product in the query. So the agent needs to know if the product exists or not, and it's going to search for prices. Because we have the products, we have the price of the product, so it needs to know the prices of the products. It doesn't call the search invoices tool because there's nothing related to searching for invoices, so it doesn't use this tool. As we can see now, the agent has output this information. With this query, the user wants to create a new invoice addressed to Qua, and that includes Classic Love product and sets payment due date in 10 days from today. So the action the agent has identified is create a new invoice. Customer, no, because there's no customer associated with this email. I can show you on my store. If I go to customers, there's no customer here. So actually there are no customers to be found. An invoice ID, no, because we don't do anything related to invoice. And we have the prices because the agent has found one price associated with the product named Classic Love. As you can see, there's a Classic Love product with the price of £79.99. And then we have products, no, because it has found the price. The reason we use price is instead of products because we only use products when there are no prices associated, and then that's why when we use products. And we use prices where we're going to use prices when creating the invoice items here. But let's first check our WhatsApp because our agent has sent us a message here in order to confirm whether we want to proceed with creating a customer, because it couldn't find any customer. So now it wants us to confirm whether we want to create a customer. So I'm going to go back to my WhatsApp. As you can see, I have received a message like this. The agent could find a product with this price, which is correct. And the agent said it couldn't find a customer with this email. So it's asking me whether I want to create this customer or not. So I can click on this link in order to respond to this request from the agent. If you don't know how to connect WhatsApp to NSN, please watch my previous video about how to connect WhatsApp to NSN as well. I'll leave the video in the pinned comment as well. Right, so now I will click on respond, and in here I can type my response. Let's say I'll say yes, create the customer. I'll click submit, and I'll go back to my workflow. And as you can see, when I have responded with yes, create a customer, then the information is passed to this create agent, create customer agent. And as you can see, we have the logs here, and then this agent actually calls the create customer tool in order to create the agent. As you can see, the create customer tool has been called successfully, and then it's going out to this node, and then it says customers created. And let's see what is the output. The record of customer has been successfully created. So let's see if the customer record is now existing in my Stripe store. If I go back to customers, I can see now there's one customer created on the 4th of August, which is the time of me recording this video, which is correct. Right. So now we have the customer. And as I said previously, the agent ends its execution here because it's part of the other agent. So it's going to end its execution here. So now we need to run the workflow again in order to actually create the invoice for this newly created customer. So the query remains the same, create the invoice for this. But this time, when we run the workflow, the agent will find the customer with this email. So let's try again. So I'm trying again, and as you can see, the agent is still searching for the customers, which it has done so. And then it searches for the products and it searches for prices. Okay, so let's have a look at this information. Search data, the query remains the same, the action remains. But this time, instead of having the null for customer, it has actually found the customer. And prices, products are the same. But as you can see, there's a confirm message here. It says, great, I found customer Qua and the classic left price. I'll create a new invoice for this customer. In this if node, previously it went up to this confirm for creating a customer, but this time it goes down the path of confirming the creation of the invoice. So now if I go back to my WhatsApp, I can see the message here. Great, I've found customer Qua and the classic love price. I'll create a new invoice for this customer, add the classic love item and set the payment due date 10 days from today. Does everything look correct before I proceed? So I can click on this respond. I think yes, correct. Proceed, please. And I'll submit. And I'll go back to my workflow. And as you can see, after I responded with yes, correct, proceed, please, then our agent here, analyze action confirmation. It says the intent, our intent here is called approve, because this agent is responsible for analyzing our intent to see if we want to proceed with information or we want to edit information before the action can proceed, because this is a final chance for the agent to edit any information before it takes action. And then the action is approve. So basically it's gonna pass information to the create invoice agent. So now it has created an invoice for me. And then let's see what's the output. It outputs the invoice ID, which means the invoice has been created successfully. So that's why we have the ID. And then it passes the invoice ID to the create invoice items agent. So this agent will create the invoice items, and that item is the classic love products with a price of £79.99. And then let's see what it outputs. So it outputs the invoice items, as I said previously. In here we have the description, which is the product of classic love, and then we have the price here, which is £79.99, the unit amount, and the currency is GBP. That's correct, right? And let's see what is the information. After it has created the invoice, it will retrieve the newly created invoice by calling another HTTP request to the invoice from Stripe, and the information we use is from retrieve an invoice, and this is the URL v1 invoices ID. That's exactly what we do here. We grab the ID from the previous agent, from the invoice agent. We put in this URL, and then it's going to retrieve the invoice for us. And then it passes the invoice information to this agent, which is generating the invoice text agent, because this agent is basically summarizing the invoice information and sending the invoice to our WhatsApp. And then it has done so. So I'm going to check my WhatsApp again. And as you can see, I've got a long WhatsApp message confirming the invoice information for me. So it says invoice ID, I have this ID, I have the status of the invoice is draft, and so on. As you can see, this is the information for the invoice. So I'm going to tell the agent to finalize this invoice. So I'm going to use the invoice ID here. I'm going to copy this ID. In Stripe, when you create an invoice, the invoice is in the draft status, which means you can edit it, you can delete it, whatever you want. But when you finalize an invoice, it means that you cannot delete the invoice anymore, or you cannot update the information of the invoice anymore. So the only thing you can do with that invoice is voiding that invoice, which means you make it invalid. But you cannot actually delete, or you cannot update the information of the invoice. So now I have the draft invoice. So let's say I want to finalize this invoice. But before I finalize this invoice, let's go back to my Stripe dashboard to see if the invoice is there. So I'm going to go to billing and invoices. So the invoice is actually here. So I can see that this invoice has been created for the customer, Qua, with the email, and the total amount of this invoice is £79.99, which is correct. And I'm going to go back to here, to this workflow. I'm going to edit the query. So now instead of creating an invoice, so I'm going to say finalize the invoice with ID. So I'm going to ask the agent to finalize the invoice with this ID. Right, so I'm going to save this and then execute the workflow again. Right, so the agent has found the invoices, and let's have a look at the search data. So it found the invoice, it found the customers, it found the invoice ID. So now it asks us to confirm, because we are now here in this action. So it asks us to confirm whether we want to finalize this invoice or not. So I'm going to click on respond. I'm going to say yes, go ahead. I'll click submit, and then I'll go back to my workflow, and as you can see, the intended action is approve, and it forwards the information to another HTTP request tool, which is finalize invoice. We send a post request to this URL of invoices ID finalize. So we are finalizing this invoice, and then so the action has been done successfully, and then we have the information generated from this agent that can be sent to our WhatsApp again. So now if I go back to my WhatsApp, I'll see, you see now with the same invoice, but the status is open, which is correct. The invoice has been finalized. You will have access to this download the PDF link, and also the invoice, the Stripe hosted URL that can be sent to your customer. I can click on the view invoice here, and here we go. This is my invoice. I can send to my customers so that I can take payment from them, which is nice, right? So you can create an invoice, you can finalize an invoice, and you can do a lot more. You can retrieve an invoice to check information with the invoice, or delete a draft invoice, or you can check the information on an existing invoice. So that is it. So this is the workflow of the invoice agent that helps you manage invoices on your Stripe dashboard or Stripe store. You can create an invoice, you can update an invoice, delete an invoice, or finalize or void an invoice without ever leaving your WhatsApp. So that's really cool, right? So if you find the video helpful, please give me a like and also subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for your support. I'll see you next time. Bye.